Hello, folks. I'm Elijah, and thank you for checking out the What Are You All About podcast. Today, we had Chris from Not Your Typical Christian channel on, and it was a lot of fun. We talked about the long process of him becoming a Christian, how he became a metalhead, our thoughts on pop music and worship music, and a lot of other things. Plus, my friend Michael was here for most of it, I think, and he added a lot of great thoughts and questions. So, if this sounds like your thing, keep listening. There was a little bit of background noise, including a very hyper 7-year-old walking in and announcing to me that he was going to shoot me with a Nerf gun later. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the episode, and let's get into this, folks. Hello, folks. I'm Elijah. This is Chris. He runs a wee channel called Not Your Typical Christian channel. I've forgotten what my questions were. Okay.
Hey, good start.
Yes.
Well, hey Elijah, thank you so much for inviting me on your show, man. It's awesome. It's great to be here.
Yes, my brain just, because I've had someone over, I've completely been thinking about that. And then I've been like, oh, we're doing this now. So anyway,
Nice.
that's kind of the way my brain works. I make something happen and then figure it out as I do it.
That's the best way, man. Like seriously, you try and like overplan things and it never works. So
Yeah.
just do it.
Yes, the most metalhead punk way to do things.
Awesome.
Yes. Right. So with this channel, kind of what we want to talk about on it is, what are people all about, and what is the story behind that? Like, what do you live for? What would you die for? And what is the story behind why that's worth so much to you, if that makes sense?
Wow. Just like one big question. Wow. Awesome. Okay, so what am I all about? So my name's Chris, and I guess, I mean, my channel and your channel, it's that they're Christian based heavy metal channels, really, aren't they? And how all of that came to be is because basically for me, I kind of grew up in a non-Christian world. So there's nobody in my friends or my family or anywhere in the vicinity of me that's ever had anything to do with that. And I came to the Christian faith much later on in life. I'd grown up, I'd been in bands, I'd basically had the entire life outside of the church listening to secular metal, properly into bands like Slipknot and Partway Drive and Killswitch Engage, and these are Korn, and I absolutely loved all of that lot. And I still like the bands now, but when I came into the Christian faith, I didn't even I had like a vague awareness that there were some Christian bands, like vaguely I'd heard the name Striper, right? That was about it.
The Bumblebee Band.
I knew, pardon?
The Bumblebee Band.
I'd not heard of that. Oh yes, sorry, yes, of course, the yellow and black.
Yes.
Spandex. I didn't realize. See, this is how little I know, right? Yeah. So what I did was on a kind of a whim. I was like, okay, I know that like Brian Welch from Korn's a Christian. I know Dave Ellefson from Megadeth's a Christian. I mean, everybody, Alice Cooper, we know, but I didn't know if there was any. There must be a Christian metal band. I didn't even know this was a thing, so I kind of just Googled it, and up came Convictions. I searched for. I searched for Christian metalcore, see what came up, and that was a few years ago, and since then I just kind of realized how like there's so much Christianity in metalcore music, and as I say, I didn't realize how little I knew. I knew absolutely nothing, so I thought that it would be really nice to make a YouTube channel where I kind of I'd made a YouTube channel where I was just talking about generic Christian stuff, and trying to find my niche. And when you kind of try and find something that you're really interested in, I kind of did some reaction videos to some heavy metal that I liked, and it just seemed to be very appropriate for me because I didn't really know anything at all or any of these bands that let's listen to them for the first time and do a genuine reaction to them, and that's kind of how all that went, really.
So coming from that, there's a few questions I've got kind of like for the stuff in there. First off, how did you get into metal? Because that's not something that you just kind of wake up one day and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna look for something with screaming and breakdowns.
Well, yes, I can tell you the moment. I don't know like the date. I haven't got it like tattooed on me or something, but I remember the moment I got into heavy metal, and that was I was at high school, and we had a common room in our kind of area where we did all our lessons and whatnot. And this lad came in, and we had a little tape deck that used to only people would bring their own tapes, and put them in. And it was always terrible dance music, and you just kind of ignore it, right? You just totally ignore this terrible music. It's just, for me, dance music, pop music, it's very much music for people who don't like music. Do you know what I mean? People who just that's what that is, right? So they put that on, and it'd be like, yeah, that's just terrible. But then this lad called James, he came in to our common room, and we'd be all like playing table tennis. We had table tennis tables in there, and it was this whole thing. It was quite lame when you look back at it, but we used to play that, and he put on the Black Album by Metallica, and it would be like this. Oh, crikey! It was like a rose growing out of a bucket of poop. Do you know what I mean? It was just like you'd be listening to all this rubbish all day, and then like he'd chuck this track on, and yeah, I love it, and then it'd be back to like boom, 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 and it's just, oh no, rubbish. But yeah, so that this guy James used to put the Black Album on, and the thing was, he wasn't even a metalhead. I don't even think so. He just really liked this one track. But yeah, that really got me into it, and from that, I bought the album myself, and from that, I bought the How to Play Sheet Music tablature book to the Black Album by Metallica, and then I learned how to play all the songs, and then basically I taught myself how to play guitar, and then a million years later I'm in bands and I'm playing guitar in bands and so on and so on. But yeah, it was funny. I went from the Black Album, and then it was Iron Maiden, Def Leppard, hard rock, and then I even dabbled with a bit of Bon Jovi, but I feel quite dirty now for just kind of admitting that. When it comes to like music, it's always been for me. I don't really care too much about the style of music as long as it can be played on real instruments. I think if you can play it live, I'll generally like it. I think is kind of where I'm at, and I think for me, music, it's just very, I don't know, it's like it's universal. It unites people, it brings people together. I think music is fantastic, and it's just the kind of the power that heavy metal has. It's just very attractive to me. It's just the power in the delivery, and as soon as like it was the late 90s, early 2000s, as soon as like Slipknot and Korn dropped with all of the the bringing the tunings right down, and then obviously Slipknot with the screaming and whatnot. Oh man, I was hooked, totally hooked.
Yeah. Right, that's really cool. For me personally, Levi, I'm in the middle of a podcast, so we have an interruption from my little brother Levi.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes. So for me, I'm homeschooled. So if on, well, I'm done being homeschooled now, but on days where I would be really bored, um, I would sometimes do a random Google search for different things, like just to find out if there was something. And one day I thought, you know what, I'm gonna look for some. Okay, let me think. I was trying to figure out what would be heavier than heavy metal, and if there was anything heavier than Striper that Christians were making. And then a friend said, "Oh, there's this thing called death metal that is terrible, but some people make it." Go get yourself a chair. Anyway, that's my friend trying to figure out how to best enter. So I was doing that, and I was bored one day. I was like, right, I'm gonna look up some Christian death metal bands, and I think I found like Living Sacrifice and For Today, and it was kind of like being all the adrenaline of being on a roller coaster without feeling sick. So it's like, this is great. So that's
For Today death metal?
No. Yeah, they're like they're a metalcore band.
Yes.
Basically, if you don't listen to them, you can't call yourself a Christian metalhead.
No, yeah, I put one of their tracks on a program, one of their tracks to go on to the radio show.
Yeah.
I think it's like next week, or I can't remember if it's next week or the week after. But yeah, it's no, they're definitely really, really good. They broke up, didn't they?
They did. They did just as I was getting into metal. I was like, they're doing their farewell tour now. This is Michael. He's very. I'm gonna need a minute to just like get ready a bit. Your hair can't be much messier than mine is.
Yes, it can.
Yeah. Which track is it that you're putting on the show? You know.
Oh, come on. King? Is it called King? I think
I don't know. It sounds like one of the songs off of either Breaker.
It's on Breaker.
Okay, yeah. Right. I've probably heard it. I just don't really remember it. This is Michael.
Hello. How you doing? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Hey, how you doing? You all right?
Yeah, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, man.
His name is Chris.
Yeah. Yes, my name is Chris. I think it was called King, that track. Yeah. I'm just trying to find it now.
Anyway,
Chris, I managed to see a few of your videos.
I'm sorry. Have you recovered yet?
Sorry?
I said, have you recovered yet? I'm sorry about that.
I was about to shower you with some compliments. I thought some of your commentary videos were really, really funny.
I showed him the one where you invented a bunch of words for Word of the Year.
Oh, right. Oh, but that was ridiculous, that one.
Yes, it was.
I thought that was great.
It
was like a word for describing it's like a new definition of casual. Is it professional casual? I can't remember the word.
Year, something like that. Anyway, we should probably get off this little tangent and get back onto the point of this podcast. So, because you're a bit limited for time. So, how did you become a Christian, and how long did it take for your faith to turn into what it is to you now, if that makes sense?
Oh, crikey. Well, that was a massive journey, man. Like, seriously long, because there was like this big, like, there's like milestones throughout kind of time, you know. So I remember when I was, well, there was a bunch of different guys in my life who kind of planted seeds in there, and then they just kind of stayed there for years. So I had a chemistry teacher who, when I was like about 14, 15, who it just basically, he was a scientist and he was a Christian. And he didn't make a big deal out of it or anything like that. He just kind of like mentioned it or something like that. And that was when I first realized that actually, you know, you didn't have to be one or the other. You could be both. You know, that's fine. And I was very sciencey, very science based. You know, and so yeah, there was that guy, and then nothing. And then when I was at university, there was a guy called John, who was the drummer in one of my bands, and he was a Christian, and he was just one of the most awesome dudes that I ever met. You know, he was just really like, he was really up and positive, and just a really, really great guy. And again, he wasn't one of these kind of people who would be like shoving faith down your throat or anything like that. But he would just be like, yeah, answer questions you want, but you know, but he was just a really great guy. And he kind of taught me that, you know, you can be a metalhead and be a Christian, you know, and you can actually be fun. You don't have to be like a judgmental, horrid person that you tend to see on the internet. And so, but I think there was kind of maybe points during my life where I spent a lot of time kind of questioning, get too deep and whatever, but just kind of questioning what is the kind of point, what is the purpose of everything? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And when my daughter was born, that was like the first time when I absolutely just got smacked with this real feeling of like, you know, almost insignificance, and that how there's just love like you wouldn't believe. It was just incredible. And that was at that point, that was when I really started looking into all these kind of questions that had been kind of bubbling around in my mind. And I didn't just go, all right, okay, well, now I'm going to be a Christian at that point. It was more like, now I'm going to start looking into, is there any truth, you know, or is there nothing? You know, is there any? I really wanted to find out what truth was, and what who had it, you know. Was it the atheists, you know? Because I kind of always put myself in a box that would be like an agnostic atheist, you know. So I kind of felt like if there was it'd be impossible to know. So people who say that they do know, they're obviously wrong. Do you know what I mean? So that was kind of the box that I put myself in. It's like, you can't know, no one can know. But then it kind of occurred to me that actually that was just kind of sitting on the fence. And I think, you know, I kind of owed it to myself to really think about these things and weigh it. So find out, you know, is there a God, or is there not a God? And if there is a God, who's got the right answer to it? Is it the Muslims? Is it the Buddhists? Is it Christians? Who is it? Is it the Jewish? You know, who's got the right thing? So I watched tons and tons of videos like on YouTube, and I read various different books. And having gone through this whole reading and looking at this against that, I got into watching lots of debates. So, you know, people like Frank Turek and William Lane Craig and John Lennox, and these are really, really great Christian apologists. And they would be arguing against like the equivalents from different religions and the atheists on YouTube. And it always came back to me that those people, in my mind, they seem to win the arguments like all the time. They seem to have the most logical answers, the most rational answers to all these different questions. There's, you know, questions as to why there is something rather than nothing. You know, why is morality universal? You know, but whether some moralities are absolutely universal, that doesn't make sense when you go to an atheistic point. It's just loads of different kind of stuff like that. And then after a while, I was like, right, okay. I got my logical brain to the point where I kind of felt like there was you know, likely, if I had to make a guess or make a choice, I'd probably say that yes, I think the people in the Christian camp, probably that's probably right. But that's basically what Frank Turek says in his videos, is that, you know, faith is more it's not like the way that we say in like Western civilization, like, you know, it's not like, you know, blindly believing something in the lack of evidence. It's more when you have the evidence, you know, when you believe that, then you believe in. It's putting your trust in what you know to be true. And that was the step that I think that, you know, was really quite a challenge, or really quite a difficult one. It was actually going from logically accepting it to actually knowing it, believing it, and putting my faith into it. And that came about really when I started going to church for the first time. So at the point where I would go to church and hang around with actual proper Bible believing Christians, at that point, you know, that's when I kind of, my heart started getting softened up. You're in this environment where, like, you know, the Spirit can like kind of speak into that. And so basically that was a very long way of coming back round to saying I needed to get out of my own way. You know, I needed to get all of this. I needed to basically I had built up a lot of barriers, because for me, Christianity and religion and all of this, like, it just seemed like magic. And it didn't seem like something that, you know, in a rational world would exist. But as soon as I kind of had gotten to the point where I believed that actually the, you know, nature had a point where it was created, right? Nature was created at some point. You know, I think most people accept that, you know, the Big Bang was a thing and the entire everything burst into being, and that before nature there was nothing. And as soon as I kind of accepted that whatever created nature had to be not nature, it was super nature. The answer to everything has to be supernatural, because if it was a natural answer, it would be created when nature was created. So the creator has to be outside of that. And as soon as my brain had locked itself into that point, as soon as I actually got around to the place where I actually allowed myself to believe in something supernatural, going into a church and allowing that to speak into me, that's where I actually started coming to faith. So that was just such a long process. I mean, it was so long, but once I'd actually started, it seemed like every little extra bit of, you know, kind of, so when you go into church and you're starting to make the decisions for yourself, like, so I'm gonna give a little bit more of myself to this, you know. So I'm gonna go and play bass in a worship band, you know, or I'm gonna go serve on the doors, or I'm gonna actually start paying money in by direct debit rather than every time I go, you know. I'm actually gonna, every extra little piece of commitment seemed to be followed in my life by some kind of extra, I don't know. I mean, one example is this day, the day I handed in my slip to actually pay my money in from my wages by direct debit rather than handing it over. That was like a formal, like, you know, that was a formal thing that I just said, right, no, this is important to me. I'm doing this. I don't pay like all my wages or like a ridiculous sum. I just pay a set amount, and I just kind of formalize that by saying, like, that's direct debit. That's important to me. That goes out as soon as my wages go into my account. So I'm gonna do that because you're important to me. As soon as I did that, like a week or so later, I got a phone call from a guy who I used to work with, who I used to work with this guy a couple of businesses back, and he just kind of said, hey, you know, are you looking for a job, or are you open to opportunities? Because, you know, we've got this new job coming up, and I'd love it if you'd like be interested in like kind of applying for it. It just happened at that point I was really struggling with the job that I was in at that point. And like I wasn't able to, I was away from home so much because I was doing trade shows and stuff like that. And it was just like the time that I'd handed in my thing to the church to say, like, no, you're really important to me. That was actually the time when he was having a meeting with this company, and he was actually saying, you know, oh, I know this guy Chris, and you should interview him to that business. It was just like, I'm not saying that, like, you know, every time you do something and take a step of faith, you get rewarded. So do have faith because you get monetary rewards. It's just like every time when I've really needed like a proper poke and a push, you know, and then you take a step, often it is accompanied by like, you know, other movements of God. You know, it's just weird. And there's been so many of these little God incidences that happened in my life that it's kind of said, right, okay, well, that's what I thought logically, but then as I walk along now, I can kind of see that that makes sense. That is the truth. So yeah, it's been a massive journey from basically being 14 years old and going, well, you're a scientist and a Christian, to being, you know, this kind of eventually got to the point where like I was like, yeah, well, that actually makes a whole heap of sense. I think the biggest problem that I've got is that you know, when you see people at church and they're like the nicest, the kindest on the surface, they look really lovely, don't they? And they're really generous and lovely. And I know that everybody's like, you know, everyone's on the best behaviors at church or whatever. But I know what I'm like, and I am I'm not that guy. I'm very, you know, I get grumpy. I do, and I do get, you know, I do get angry, you know, by various different bits and pieces, and I kind of, I know that, you know, I'm just such like a work in progress, and I'm about 30 odd years, you know, 30 odd years worth of the Spirit working on me behind everybody else my age. Do you know what I mean? In the Christian church. So I make so many mistakes all the time. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why I went from doing kind of stuff which I consider to be teachy on the YouTube channel to going more into just trying to just be straight entertainment, you know, just trying to talk about music, because there was this moment where I just kind of thought, well, you know what, you've only been in the church a couple of years, you know, if like your Christian age was the same age as when you know, if your actual age was the age that you got, you know, you converted, I'm about 5, you know, I shouldn't be teaching people, you know, it shouldn't be. So that's why I stopped doing, you know, those kind of should a Christian do XYZ videos. So I don't know what I don't know, I'm going to stop doing that. So I just got into just talking about music, which I felt I did know a bit about. So
yeah, I think that's really cool. I think where like, should you be teaching? I think we all learn things which we need to share with some people. For sure, like pretty soon on, you should be able to participate in stuff, and like iron sharpens iron, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be like preaching to the whole world.
There's levels of it, aren't there?
That's
exactly.
for
you gotta, it's great that you understand like your own limits and where you're at. Like most people, they would try to like, you know, like exert themselves more than they're capable of, especially at such an early stage. I mean, I do see a lot of like new founded Christians who are very excited about, you know, their new faith and feeling all this love of God, and they start seeing a lot of things that aren't exactly like scriptural, and you're just like, where are you getting this from? I don't think you should be saying that to this person, because you're gonna mislead them basically, and you know you should. It is wise basically to know your extent of, you know, what you should be talking about. So I fully agree with what you're saying, but I feel like it shouldn't stop you from, you know, reaching out. Like, you know, the more you progress and the more you grow in your faith, you should take the steps that, you know, maybe God opens for you in terms of teaching as well, to touch other crowds and touch other lives, you know. So
I agree. I definitely agree with that. I mean, for me, we're doing the radio show. That I feel like, you know, they say, oh, when they asked me to do that on UCB1, when they asked me to go and do that, they said, okay, well, what we want is somebody who likes Christian metal. Yeah, tick. We want somebody who like is just kind of excited, enthusiastic, and just have a bit of a laugh. But what we also want is to somebody to give some encouragement as well. And I kind of feel like what I can do. I can like tell people, I can teach people how awesome it is to kind of come into the faith. I can teach people how those steps that I kind of went through and how to articulate faith to people, because I was that person who was on the fence, and I was that person who was listening to both sides of the arguments, trying to weigh up, this, that, and the other. And, I could say why these arguments are good or bad or whatever. I feel pretty confident in teaching that kind of stuff. Absolutely. I feel pretty confident in teaching people, what it's like to be a bloke and kind of put faith in your life and how to live, your best life that you can really at the moment in a group of people who are just not in the faith. And that's kind of where I'm kind of at. But I would feel when I was making the videos, like right at the very, very start, when I'm kind of, I did one like, I remember doing it with Pastor Joe. Do you know Pastor Joe Ensley? Did you see?
I'm not sure I've seen that one.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
I did this one with Pastor Joe, and it was all about like, how do you know when Spirit's talking to you? And, is it just you, or is it your, or is it the Spirit talking to you, or is it, or is it just your own like kind of self-talk or whatever? We had a really great chat, and I sat there with Pastor Joe talking about it for ages, and then we got this video, and it was going to be one where I did one piece and he did a couple of tips or whatever, and it was sound what we put in, but it was a good video. But after I put it out and I watched it, I was like, you're just not qualified to have made that video. And me personally, Joe he's a pastor, and he wouldn't have let me put something out that wasn't right. But it was just like, whoa, that was, for me, that was just very much like, I don't know what I don't know. And I really didn't feel like that was a real wise thing for me to be doing, was to be making videos where, because, in the Bible, it does kind of say that, people who teach, God holds those up to it's a higher standard, and if you lead people astray, then that's just not good. So I don't know. I mean, it's funny. I mean, and then you see those stories like Brian Welch, when he he kind of, he was saying that, like, he went too far with the faith and all of that, like, and he just kind of went off like a rocket, and that's like what you were saying. They do, when people have these vast changes in their faith overnight, you kind of swing one way, and it's very easy to swing back the other. You need years of like bedding in, walking with faithfully, I think, is probably the right thing to say. I know it's been very strange. I didn't go off quite like Brian Welch, and I didn't go off like just like, you're all going to hell now, none of that,
I mean, you weren't doing meth for like 700 days.
no, I didn't never tried it either. No. So no, I didn't do that. But I do think that there's definitely a period where I'm in a season now where I'm kind of more reflective and more kind of really trying to take stock of where I want to be, and then I'm going to be more in a kind of a growth phase. Maybe in future I will go into more like a teaching kind of thing, if that's where God leads me, and that's fine too. I'm open to like looking at the opportunities, but equally it's like there's a lot of stuff that you kind of do or can get into doing when you're in this kind of world that like you can make some really silly mistakes, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you even take some examples from the Bible, like when Paul first became a Christian, like he was blind for like a really long time.
3 days.
Yeah, 3 days. Sorry, not a long time, but like he was blind for a while, right? Just to like really piece together everything. And then after that as well, he went to go spend some time with like other Christians as well for I think about 3 years as well, to just sort of like ground his faith too. And it's the same thing with Jesus, right? Before he like fully on started his ministry, he went to the wilderness and started fasting for 40 days. So obviously these people, the idea of like grounding your faith, is really there in the Bible. So
Yeah.
You've got
It's,
a point there.
it's also quite interesting that you mentioned Paul, really, because he was persecuting the Christians, like and he came to the faith in a on his road to the Damascus moment, didn't he? And he he changed completely, and he did instantly after this period of reflection or whatever. But he did go out, and without like spending years at Bible college or without he just kind of went out preaching, and he did convert a lot of people. And I think a lot of what we're kind of called to do is just to try and win souls for the Lord, to get more ticks on the run sheet for Team Jesus, and that's cool. And there are things that we can do to help with that. But I also think I know that it is the Spirit that convicts people, and I know that when people do come to faith, it's the Spirit that's talking into their souls. But I think that whilst humans can't through our own actions convert people, I think we can very much not convert people or stop them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do get what you mean. Like, one, you can just be like a complete turn off, and God can still work through people that are really loud and aggressive and going to push most people away, but it's not.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what's the theologically correct way to put this.
It's not exactly it's not exactly your working that's gonna bring them to God. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not your working that's gonna bring people to God anyway. So I guess on the one hand, any approach sort of works, but I think there's approaches that you can at least plant a seed without, and the Holy Spirit can do its work later.
I wouldn't say like any approach, like
well, yeah,
it has to be like
ethically, and
it needs to be like some sort of guidance in your approach, because I feel like if you don't do it right, you can mislead them.
Yeah, no, exactly. You can delay people as well. You can get in their way, and I think that whilst I do believe that God can turn any situation for good. Absolutely, of course He can. I just really believe that we can actually sometimes get in the way of that. I mean, the amount of conversations. I mean, one of the things that I did do when I first kind of came to faith was start going back into the same Christian versus atheist debate discussion groups on Facebook, and just try and go back in there now as in the Christian camp and try and argue the Christian case. And the amount of people who have been kind of deconverted because of like negative experiences with Christian people, it's really they kind of harden their heart to the Spirit because of the actions of people in Christian camps sometimes. And I think that that's not, it's not good. I've had I have people who spoken to me through the work that I've done with the channel, just kind of saying that they've given church another go because they've found this little community of metalheads, and they want to get back in, and then they've gone back to the church, and then they've been drummed out again because they've got tattoos and and I don't know, it's I do like being part of like what you're doing with your channel, Elijah. It's just trying to put out a different narrative into the world that it's okay to like alternative music. And I think the ministry of Jesus is very it's very loving, and it's not to say that like everything you don't just accept everybody's bad behavior as being good or anything like that, but you just kind of accept that all the judgment-y kind of stuff and the work on people's spirit. You could tell people that's not right or whatever, but I think really our first reaction has to be to love on people, particularly people in like the marginalized communities who, you know, it's funny to me. We understand that, you know, people, people who are in other countries who are being, you know, they're starving, or, you know, they need our help and support and charity and all of that. We're reaching out to, you know, I said a story on the radio the other day of a prostitute who had AIDS and was blind, and this Christian mission had like gotten back. And we understand we have to reach out to the people who maybe society marginalizes, but we've got a whole group of people in the country who we can actually, you know, reach out to as well. You know, they're people just the same, and
I think
so. I'm really pleased to be part of that. I think, and I definitely like doing the radio show where, you know, where it's a good part of that you know, UCB1 thing. That's pretty cool.
I think with like how we can often mess with people next to us, like we have this idea in our head of like what sort of a person needs
has dreadlocks, Elijah. Who does that?
Yes, or like what sort of people are kind of worth, like need the most help, and we can often like look to, I'll donate 20 quid to this, but I'm not going to talk to that person next to me. Well, donating 20 quid is probably in most cases easier than actually seeing a human who's like you and kind of seeing their messed upness that's also in you mirrored.
I think that's very true. I think with I was listening to this thing on the radio the other day, and they were saying something very, very similar. What was it? It was talking about the nature of grace and how, you know, by definition, it's only grace when you are giving it to people and they don't deserve it. You know, it's like the person who cuts you up on the road, and you know, and they make you slam on your brakes and they drive off. You know, is your natural reaction just to kind of just to have a little chuckle and go, oh, right, okay, and you know, reset yourself and carry on going and don't let it get your day, and you know, kind of forgive this person? Or is it to like wind the window down and start shouting after him? Do you know what I mean? And it's like, oh yes, but he carved me up. It's like, well, yeah, that's the hardest thing. It's like you have to realize that there's a lot of these little slights and insults and day-to-day things that happen that, I mean, it's just not human nature to let these things go, is it?
And
yeah, definitely.
I think like humans want justice, but like oftentimes Christians can, myself included, completely miss that the whole point of Christianity is that, well, yes, there's some justice that we want to see on this earth. There's a lot of justice that we can't see until afterwards, and that ultimately,
like, we're called to love and forgive people just like Jesus would, you know,
like essentially that we're not the highest power. I think a lot of Christians can use, I don't want to like label people, but I think there's times where we can use Christianity to make ourselves feel like the higher power, if that makes sense.
I was kind of mulling that one over myself over the last week or so. You know, when I'm walking the dog and just kind of thinking on these things. And, it's funny because, you know, we read that we are, you know, we're made in the image of God, and what is God? You know, God is like, you know, he's just powerful, and you know, he has agency. He can do whatever he wants, and even though we are not God, we're not gods. You know, we are like a reflection in a dirty mirror. You know, it's kind of it seems to make sense to me that we want to act on a small scale in a very similar way to what God does on a big scale. You know, we want justice, and we want our way, our will, my will be done. You know, and it's like it just seems to me that it makes sense that it's there. because obviously if we are made in the image of God, and these are like little seeds of what God is like, but it's just kind of understanding that desire to just be kind of always right, and that's not who we're designed to be, is it? We're not. we seldom have all the information we need to make a decision, and we generally speaking a bit rude, aren't we? A bit anyway.
Yeah. So okay, we're gonna have to wrap it up soon, but I've got a completely different question to end this on a slightly less deep note. So you did a live stream thing a wee while back on your channel. On that, you said that your personality was like a bit of Christian and like a bit of metalhead and some other things. How would you describe a metalhead personality?
A metalhead personality. That is such a good question. I talk like a lot. I don't. It's only like when I shut up that I really think about what I've just said. When I'm editing my YouTube shows back together, the amount of stuff that ends up on the cutting floor because I just talk. So if I've got like metalhead person, I'm a bit of a Christian, a bit of a metalhead. They sound like two mutually exclusive things, don't they? No. A metalhead to me, there's no like one metalhead. Obviously there's characteristics that all metalheads will share. A love for alternative music, I think, is probably a given, isn't it? If you don't like metal, then you're not a metalhead. But when you think about like the kind of the personality, I think that metalheads tend to be very individual, very unconcerned with what the majority think of us. I think that metalheads tend to be very short. Well, they like what they like and they don't like what they don't like, and they can be very forthright in arguing that. And I think that I think no, that's all right. I think metalheads is just basically being really individualistic, and it's more interested in what's good and quality than what everybody else thinks. And I think that because of that, those characteristics which pretty much all metalheads share, I think that there's a lot of parallels between Christianity and heavy metal, because I've always been more interested in what's right than what's popular, what's true rather than what everybody else says. It's interesting to me that the church has so many metaphors to do with shepherds, and Jesus is the good shepherd, and we're his flock, and I've always felt like a black sheep, so there's like this there's this flock of like white sheep, and like you've got the little Christian metalheads, still Christians, still a sheep. I'm just a black sheep.
I think that kind of describes me a lot, because I've been like the sort of person, like that one person in camo and stuff, and I've been the person who will,
with the dreadlocks too,
who will debate.
It's a good look. It is a good look.
Thank you. I've been like the person who will debate with random people why your music style sucks and why metal is better.
Yeah, I love you, but your music style sucks. But I love you.
Yes, here's why. It's generic. The lyrics are garbage. There's too much auto-tune, not enough real instruments.
Exactly. It's got to be authentic, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what when you said, like, when I was talking about I like pretty much anything as long as you play it on a real instrument. It's authenticity. This is like the hallmarks of metalheads. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think I like authenticity, but did I say that correctly? No one cares. But I think it's not so much about the instruments for me as the lyrics. Like the biggest turn off for pop music for me isn't the music often as much as it is the lyrics are a load of nothing that you can't really relate to. It's more like it feels like it's trying to write something for people to fantasize about more than something that reflects real life.
For me, I kind of refer to it as lyrical bubblegum. That's how I kind of call it. It's like, you know, it's just like words that they're just kind of chewing on to say something, you know. It's not great and there's not a lot of substance behind it. So, you know, I feel like bubblegum. I saw a video with a guy who was really brave. He was going about why Christian music sucks. And
was it the Come the Night or is it someone else?
I can't remember his name.
Okay, yeah.
It was great though, and he went through, and basically what he was saying was, you know, obviously it's coming from a place of, you know, it's a good place that it's coming from, you know, it's you know, the intent's there, but when you just write in lyrics and they're all just seem to be like, it's as if they've got like a bunch of jigsaw pieces and they're just like walking on water, okay, you know, breaking chains, you know, and they're just putting it together, and you just got this thing. You know, the storms are coming. I'm on the ocean. Oh, stop it! You know what I mean?
They start to sound so alike.
Like I like worship songs in a worship context, but basically no other context.
Yep, absolutely. It's good, but then when you listen to something like War of Ages, or you listen to something like Diamonds to Dust, or you listen to any of these like Christian metal bands, they are writing really great poetry set to heavy metal, and I think that's a big difference. You know, it doesn't have to be like really formulaic and, you know, identikit words, but sometimes I think it's interesting for me because when I went and played bass at church and we only played like Hillsong and Elevation and all of that, I actually really like those. I'm actually playing. I mean, I do like it. I don't know. It's different music for different purposes, and that music is definitely very good in a church setting because it's good because it appeals to everybody, and that's obviously the nature of pop music, isn't it? You know, and I don't know. I think if you actually rolled out some death metal in a church, you probably wouldn't have the same kind of experience.
You wouldn't have the same amount of people to draw from either, because it's like, can you play 4 chords on a guitar? Yep. Go.
Fantastic. But it's weird, isn't it? You know, because worship at church, like, there's a different kind of power there, you know. Like when I played bass on stage, it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible because the music is like the vehicle that you're driving the message home to, and it's a way of sharing the space between, you know, the band leading the congregation into a place with God. Man, it's just unbelievable, you know. It's incredible. So for me, in that setting, the music is almost secondary to what's kind of going on. So I don't have a problem with Hillsong or whatever, but I don't choose to listen to it, and I don't choose to listen to it as much because, well, I'm metal, isn't it? I like the lyrics better.
You know August Burns Reds?
Yep.
Okay, so their drummer Matt Greiner does a lot of podcast stuff. So in one of his podcasts, he mentioned that he doesn't listen to a ton of metal and really likes Hillsong. So I think if you're the sort of person who plays in a metal band and that's your job, then something like Hillsong is going to be refreshing. But if for most metalheads to listen to that, like, save it for worship.
It's funny though, for me, I've kind of come to a point in my life where I if I like something, I just like it. And I've got on the radio show, I've actually put in a track by Jesus Culture the other day, I put Your Love Never Fails, like the live version. Played that on a rock show because it's a rock song. It is.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, I don't care that like there might be elitists or whatever might turn around and say, oh, that's not rock music or that's pop music or whatever. I don't care. It's a good song and I like it. And I think, you know, sometimes just kind of got to be a bit bold, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of elitists would say Convictions isn't a metal band.
Really?
Well, because they've like if you want to talk about like proper elitists, they'd be like death metal, thrash metal, power metal, no breakdowns, because that's a punk influence.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
There's no pleasing these people.
Although when he did do the Zach Williams song, it was April Fool's Day, and I felt like I was getting rickrolled. Because I was like, I think you probably played like a conviction. You probably played Moros by Convictions by before it, and then I heard that and I was like, "Is
really? Really? What are you doing that for?" Yeah. Well, I wasn't joking. I liked that song.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Cool.
think you've probably got to go around now. It's 9.
Ah, right. Okay.
So
yeah. Well, I've got. I can go a bit more if you've got anything else you wanted to kind of go through. Or...
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We can. My brain will come up with something very quickly. Okay.
So when do your podcast go out?
I'll probably put out like tomorrow when I have time.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. And how often are you doing them?
I'm probably going to try and get it around weekly, but it's not exact. It's just try and get them out often enough. There'll be something like that, if that makes sense. Yeah. So
that's really cool.
By the way, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not a regular on this podcast. I was just over today, and he was just like, "I'm doing a podcast today. Do you want to hop on?" So, I did also show up here a bit late.
Yeah.
Apologies.
Oh, that's really cool. It's nice to meet you, man.
Yeah. Michael, awesome. Do you have some questions?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting when you said you were going to that through your faith journey, right? That you were looking through all the religions to try and find God, basically. So I don't know. I wanted to ask, like, what stood out in Christianity compared to, you know, Buddhism and Islamism. Is it Islam and all of that, you know?
Okay, so some of them like just got kind of crossed out straight away because the ones that are like God is the universe, kind of pantheistic stuff. It's like, well, you get into the whole infinite regress because God would have to have created himself when he created the universe and all of that. There's a lot of stuff that there was a lot of things that kind of didn't actually consider because it just seemed ludicrous. But for me, one of the biggest things about Christianity is that, like, I think of if I think there is a being that has created everything and that thing has unlimited power and unlimited, like, it can do anything it wants to do, there is nothing that a thing that is created could do to give back that it needs, right? It doesn't need anything at all from its people. And the thing that I found so attractive about Christianity as opposed to the other ones is, like, everything else seems to be works based. You do this, if you do that, if you jump through all these different hoops, maybe you'll get to the point where you've pleased this being enough. And it's like Christianity is like completely opposite. It's just like, you don't deserve it, you never will, but I love you anyway. I don't need anything from you, but that just makes sense. That's exactly what I think the creator would be like. It doesn't, why would it set up a bunch of these instructions that you have to do to appease him? It just seems to me like that seems to be the most one of the most appealing things about it. There's that Hillsong. I think I've mentioned this on it's either on the radio or on the YouTube or something. But it's like there's that song by Hillsong where it says to think that you don't need anything, but still you want my heart. I can't remember what the name of the song was off the top of my head, but that it's beautiful. You know, that the whole thing of grace is like, I don't need anything from you, love you anyway, and that's what did it for me. But then the other thing is that, like, you know, you've got when you go through all of the debates, there's certain things that come up all the time which you just can't explain away from non-Christian. I mean, the fact of the matter is there was a person called Jesus Christ. He existed. Well, it wasn't called Jesus Christ, Jesus of Nazareth, right? There was this guy. It's just a fact that this guy was alive 2,000 years ago. Is available not only in the Bible but in other historical documents. You know, and you know, you look at there's like Roman texts where this person, this 33-year-old Jewish man, was executed by the authority. This is all fact that happened. It comes to the point where it all comes to the point of saying, okay, well, who was he? And was he either, how does C.S. Lewis put it? Something like he was either mad, a liar, or the son of God. And you've just got to assume that, you've got to understand, or got to make a decision about who Jesus was, because he was a person. It's not like Thor. Do you know what I mean? He was a real person. So that was really powerful. You know, so I don't know. I think when it comes to why Christianity over other religions, I just genuinely believe that that's where the truth is. And it's funny, you know, I kind of feel like Christianity, it asks so much of you. It takes, you know, it can be really inconvenient to deny yourself certain things and to give certain things. But for me, like I said at the start of this thing, I think that, you know, truth is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I've weighed up everything, believe that, you know, there is a God, the Christian Bible has got it right, so therefore everything else just flows from that. You know, if you have got this being that is infinitely vast and powerful, the only appropriate response to that is just awe and obedience, and that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
Cool.
Something completely off top. Do you have something to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just one more. So like, in terms, so you as you mentioned in the debates, you mentioned that on the, you know, Christian sides of this debate, there'd be points where, you know, they just seem like irrefutable, and, you know, they just make sense that, you know, make so much sense that the other side just can't explain it, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's your response to opinions from the opposing side that you yourself can't seem to, you know, find an explanation for their points?
You'd have to take that on a case-by-case basis, really, wouldn't you? You know, but it depends on which points, you know. Because it's so easy to make the God of the gaps argument, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that's what Christians get accused of all the time. It's like, I don't know how XYZ works, therefore God did it. And that's terrible. That is the worst kind of argument for God that there possibly is. But what the atheists or the naturalists totally fail to see is the science of the gaps argument.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like you do it, they do it exactly the same way. You know, we don't know how the initial conditions of the universe caused the Big Bang to occur, but we know it's not God, and we know that eventually science will figure it out. That's the same.
Yeah,
it's wrong to assume that it's a God. It could be anything. A lot of them say they'll be like, oh, it could have been some alien that we just haven't met yet, or something like that. Like I've heard
to
explanations.
no, absolutely. But to avoid an infinite regress, you have to stop somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like aliens did it. Okay, great. Well, who created aliens? A big super alien. Okay, well, who created that one? And back you go. Eventually, you have to get to a point where something that wasn't created everything. That's just the way that I look at it. I mean, things don't create themselves. If there's an argument that's really well put together by William Lane Craig that said anything that comes into being, so anything that comes into being must be created, and if oh God, I hadn't prepared for this. I had to go. If something comes into being, it must have been created, and therefore, if if the universe has come into being, then it must have been created by something. Things don't cause themselves, and therefore, whatever caused the universe to come into being must itself not be caused. It must be an uncaused first cause. It must itself be uncaused. And then when you think like, actual science tells us that, time, matter, the universe, everything, absolutely everything, including time, time, matter, and space all came out from a singularity at the same point. Okay, so whatever caused that, if it had a cause, must be timeless, spaceless, and immaterial. It doesn't. You get to the point where everything that you ascribe to whatever created the universe, if you're not in some kind of theistic camp, you're describing God without calling it that. You're describing an unimaginably powerful, personal being which is chosen to create everything. You describe God. There is this point where I found myself getting urged along to a point where it's like, I'm just describing God. That's all I'm doing. It's not God, but I'm just describing what the Christians call God. And that was one of the kind of things that got me out of the way of my own way. So, yeah. It's funny, isn't it, when you talk to people about faith, a lot of them will say, or you just blindly believe stuff. You're just taking it. No. If you want to put the effort in and think about it, you'll get some really interesting conversations that you'll have. And I feel more strong in my faith because I've gone through all of that process, asking all those questions. When people are brought up just told that it is true and not why, like, life sucks on earth. It's really hard, and as soon as you're out on your own, it beats you. And if you it just does. And if you if you don't understand why you believe what you believe, you start to get rocked by things like the why is there so much suffering on earth? Why is my life rubbish when I try and do good things? And all of these kind of things. It's just it's really important, I think, for people to be able to understand. And I think personally that's why when in the Great Commission in the Bible, where it says go out and make disciples of all the world and all that, there's another phrase that I can't remember the actual scripture, but I mean you guys will probably know it, where it's like, always be ready when asked, to give a reason for the hope that you have. I can't remember which exactly one it is. And I think that there's twofold reason for that. I think there's yes, because it's you have a reason to give to people, because yes, you're trying to win people or make people understand and hopefully maybe get them to be open to the message. But I think it's for us, to have thought through our faith, to understand why it's true, not just experientially, because if you're only doing it kind of feel God, when you don't feel God you won't believe. You've got to kind of understand it. So I think it's for ourselves as well as for other people. That's why we need to have a reason for the hope we have.
You've said so many things so well in this podcast. I'm like, that's great, and I don't really have that much to add.
Well, it's been my pleasure, Elijah. It really has. I
Are
don't know.
you teaching again?
Pardon?
Are you sure you shouldn't be teaching again? It's just a joke on my side, but we thoroughly understand your point.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe I feel happy like trying to answer the questions as to how to come to faith, because I've been through that.
Yeah.
But I think pastorally, I think I should be very careful about telling somebody actually no, that's right, when maybe it's not, or vice versa. You know, so but I got you already joking, man. That's cool. Yeah, man. If you ever want me back on, I'm sure I can make time for you. I love your channel, man. It's cool.
Thanks.
And really do wish you all the best with it. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So.
One last thing is that Michael would like to thank you for introducing me to the song Be Somebody, so that he could be introduced to it by me on Wednesday night.
All right. I almost forgot about that. I only found out about the song yesterday.
I thought it was Wednesday.
Wednesday. My memory is so bad. But yeah, I absolutely love it. Thank you for reacting to that song.
Oh, that's all right. I was blown away. My wife, she said, "Oh, you should listen to some 1,000 Foot Crutch." I was like, I hadn't heard any, and she suggested that song. She said she'll like it, and I really did. It's brilliant. Have you heard much 1,000 Foot Crutch? Or
a little bit?
Up until that moment, I've only heard one of your other songs.
Have you heard any Red?
Red. I think I have. I can't remember the name right now, but
1,000 Foot Crutch and Red are like two of my favorite bands that I've actually found since I've come to be looking into Christian metal. The guy Michael from Red, he's just such an awesome dude. He's really chill, really quiet, but he's just got this massive voice on him. It's just incredible. I'm playing a song called Pieces, which is just beautiful. It's heartbreaking. It's so nice. And I've also on the show, and he's also got a song called Breathe Into Me.
Yeah,
and that is just epic. It's so good. But 1,000 Foot Crutch and Red are just fantastic.
Yes, he mostly listens to rap, but when he hears a good song, he's like, "This is good."
Yeah. My music taste is kind of like everywhere, to be honest. It's not just rap, but it's kind of like everywhere. So
nice. Who's good in rap? Who's your favorite band? Who do you like?
So I listen to a lot of Eminem, listen to a lot of NF, and I've got a few other pop artists as well. Trying to, like I said, my memory is really bad. I've been listening to some of Olivia Rodrigo songs lately, because I feel like they've got a sort of like punk rock vibes to them. I've also been listening to a few punk rock as well. What else? G-Eazy is another rap artist I listen to. I feel like these guys, they're very good with their words. The rap people that I described, they're very good like creating, a story and really telling it really well with their words. Not just like with the instrumentals too, but it just really.
I haven't really listened to much like Christian rap or hip hop, but I mean, I absolutely loved the Marshall Mathers LP, and I absolutely loved 2000 by Dre. I don't know if you've heard that. Oh man,
LP is basically how I found Eminem. That is basically how I came to love them. Honestly, it's such a great album.
Yeah, it's it's not something that is very much inside the Christian camp. I haven't thought about that in absolutely ages. But I remember, I mean that song Kim right at the end of the Marshall Mathers LP. Oh, man, that was just really dark. It was really, really powerful. Quite surprised that he actually put that one out. I thought that might be like a confession, to a crime. But yeah, no, it's cool. Yeah, I might have to go and check out some NF.
Yeah,
NF is really great.
He put out a new album recently. You should check out Yeah. What song should you check out if he was gonna pick like 3?
Honestly, Elijah's gonna disagree with me, but I would say listen to Drifting, Just Like You. Those two songs are, well, Drifting is more like is more like into his own mind. He's just
Yeah.
trying to explain how, he's going about his stuff in his music. And then Just Like You is like he's talking to his fans personally. He's a guy that really cares about his fans. And then Clouds as well.
Okay.
As a
So
song.
I've got Drifting, Just Like You, and Clouds.
Yeah.
I've made a note. I'll go check them out.
Right.
Right.
Awesome.
Okay, yes, I would disagree with you. The first time, like, yes, Clouds, I'm like, yeah. Okay, I'm trying to think what I would probably change that to what's the one he did with Hobson?
I can't remember.
It's,
It's Lost.
yes,
Yeah,
Lost. I'd probably change that to Lost.
Yeah, you can change Clouds to Lost. I'm fine with that.
I'll listen to them all anyway. So
Yeah.
I'll add it on. I'll listen to those 4.
Yeah.
Did he do that track Motivated? Is that NF?
Yeah, he did. He did Motivated. Yes, that was him.
Man, flow on that track
in
was sick. It's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, I listen to that like whenever I'm in the gym or studying for
Really?
an exam at 2 a.m.
Yeah. I want to get motivated. What track shall I play? I know.
Yeah, I think that was in his Perception album. I think either Perception or the one with Therapy Session on it. But yeah,
Oh, cool.
That was the album Therapy Session then?
huh? I thought Therapy Session came in a different album.
Therapy Session was
His own album.
yeah.
Huh.
Sick.
Yes.
Cool. Well, I'll go check them out. That
Yeah.
sounds good.
Anyway, you've got your homework for today, and
I have.
I think it's probably a good time to wrap it up now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate your time, man. I'll catch you again real soon.
Yeah.
Well, I'll really be excited to see a lot more of your stuff coming through. I'll keep up. So good luck with everything in YouTube and media and stuff. So.
Sweet. Well, nice to meet you, man. Nice to meet you, Michael. And see you later, Elijah. Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Take care, guys.
If you made it all the way through that, thank you so much for listening to it. If you're a metalhead, then I've got a YouTube channel which has a lot of Christian metal stuff on there. If you're interested, it's called Elijah JP Metal. And yeah, I'll be doing a lot more podcasts, so keep an eye out for them. And I will see you guys, or whatever it is when you listen to a podcast, in the next episode.